Ezekiel 33. The word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, speak to your people and say to them, when I bring the sword against a land, and the people of the land choose one of their men and make him their watchman, and he sees the sword coming against the land and blows the trumpet to warn people, then if anyone hears the trumpet but does not heed the warning, and the sword comes and takes their life, their blood will be on their own head. Since they heard the sound of the trumpet but did not heed the warning, their blood will be on their own head. If they had heeded the warning, they would have saved themselves. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin. But I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood. Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the people of Israel, so hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. Okay, so the book of Ezekiel is now repeating in the 33rd chapter what God was talking about in the 3rd chapter when he called Ezekiel to be a watchman. Verse 7, Son of man, I've made you a watchman for the people of Israel, so hear the word I speak and give them warning from me. When I say to the wicked, you wicked person, you will surely die, and you do not speak out to dissuade them from their ways, that person will die for their sin, and I will hold you accountable for their blood. But if you do warn the wicked person to turn from their wicked ways, and they do not do so, they will die for their sin, though you yourself will be saved. Son of man, say to the Israelites, this is what you are saying. Our offenses and sins weigh us down, and we are wasting away because of them. How then can we live? Say to them, as surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, I take no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but rather that they turn from their ways and live. Turn from your evil ways. Why will you die, people of Israel? Therefore, Son of man, say to your people, if someone who is righteous disobeys, that person's former righteousness will count for nothing. And if someone who is wicked repents, that person's former wickedness will not bring condemnation. The righteous person who sins will not be allowed to live, even though they were formerly righteous. Oh, my goodness. Okay, can we please take a lesson from this right now? Because this is exactly what I've been talking about. That old church that thinks, oh, we don't have to do anything. Our sins are not that bad. Thank God I'm not like the crackhead. Thank God I'm not like the prostitute. That wicked church is more wicked than the crackhead and the prostitute who turn from their wicked ways and actually have time to fulfill the covenant that they have with God. And when I say time, I'm being kind of tongue-in-cheek about that. All of us have time to fulfill our covenant. What are we doing here? It's so crazy that anyone would put God's covenant on hold as though they have all the time in the world to become clean and become holy as God is holy and do all the things that need to be done in their covenant in order to receive the gift that Christ has extended. It is bananas that anyone would even think that they should even be playing like that. But see, this is exactly what I've been telling you. Those who have lived righteous lives, think they've lived righteous lives, and then they turn and they have wicked ideas like that, none of their righteousness will be attributed to them. They will be judged for how they ended up. What have they done by the time the Lord returns? You think you're going to pick that up at the last hour? Well, the word does not say that. In fact, the word demonstrates no one's going to pick it up after the 5th trumpet. So something's being done before that 5th trumpet that I've been telling you about. The separation of the wheat from the tares. If you can't pick it up now when things are easy, you won't be picking it up when things are difficult when the Antichrist rises. We know that for sure. We know that for sure because once the Antichrist rises at that 5th trumpet, no one else repents. They have already been put in one of 2 categories, only 2. Objects of mercy, objects of wrath. Wheat, tares. If I tell a righteous person that they will surely live, but then they trust in their righteousness and do evil, okay, counterfeit Christianity. If you are told that you will live, and then you trust in your righteousness and do evil, well, let's hear what God says will happen. None of the righteous things that person has done will be remembered. They will die for the evil they have done. And if I say to a wicked person, you will surely die, but they then turn away from their sin and do what is just and right, if they give back what they took in pledge for a loan, return what they have stolen, follow the decrees that give life. Oh, there's things that we have to do. Oh, we have to make right on the things we've done wrong. Imagine that. Follow the decrees that give life and do no evil. That person will surely live. They will not die. None of the sins that person has committed will be remembered against them. They have done what is just and right. They will surely live. God's Spirit is going to move you to do these things. God, you have such a debt. I have such a debt that there's no way that I could repay everything that I have done. I couldn't even think of it on my own. But God will move me into remembering what I've done. And he does. And he will move me into making that right. He will tell you what you must do. And then you have to believe it, and you got to go do it. Yet your people say the way of the Lord is not just, but it is their way that is not just. If a righteous person turns from their righteousness and does evil, they will die for it. And if a wicked person turns away from their wickedness and does what is just and right, they will live by doing so. Yet you Israelites say, the way of the Lord is not just, but I will judge each of you according to your own ways. Now, do you remember in Ezekiel 12 and Ezekiel 18 when God says a time is coming when you're no longer going to quote this proverb in Israel, the parents eat sour grapes and the children's teeth are set on edge. So he's already told you this once, twice, 3 times in Ezekiel 33. Do you think it might be important? Do you think he might want you to know that you need to continue to grow? You need to continue to endure. You don't sit and do that counterfeit Christian stuff like what they sing about. I will wait on you. I will wait for you. I will wait for you. What are you waiting for? Get active in your covenant. He's waiting on you. You know why they wait for him? Because they think they're already saved. They don't know the word of God. If you're already saved, God is not going to give you more grief than is necessary. Why in the world would he not pick you up? If Jesus did everything, what's he waiting for? He's waiting for you to pick up your part of the covenant. In the 12th year of our exile, in the 10th month on the 5th day, a man who had escaped from Jerusalem came to me and said, the city is fallen. Now the evening before the man arrived, the hand of the Lord was on me, and he opened my mouth before the man came to me in the morning. So my mouth was opened, and I was no longer silent. Then the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, the people living in those ruins in the land of Israel are saying Abraham was only one man, yet he possessed the land. But we are many. Surely the land has been given to us as our possession. Therefore say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Since you eat meat with the blood still in it, and look to your idols and shed blood, should you then possess the land? And think about yourself. Since you eat meat with the blood still in it, and you look to your idols and shed blood, should you then possess the land? You rely on your sword. You do detestable things. And each of you defiles his neighbor's wife. Should you then possess the land? Say this to them. This is what the sovereign Lord says. As surely as I live, those who are left in the ruins will fall by the sword. Those out in the country I will give to the wild animals to be devoured. And those in strongholds and caves will die of a plague. I will make the land a desolate waste, and her proud strength will come to an end. Oh, is he talking about land still? Because how is land proud? He might be talking about Jerusalem as land, since he's already established that his church is land. I will make the land a desolate waste, and her proud strength will come to an end. And the mountains of Israel will become desolate so that no one will cross them. So he's talking about counterfeit Christianity, counterfeit religion. Then they will know that I am the Lord when I have made the land a desolate waste because of all the detestable things they have done. As for you, son of man, your people are talking together about you by the walls and at the doors of the houses, saying to each other, come and hear the message that has come from the Lord. My people come to you, as they usually do, and sit before you to hear your words, but they do not put them into practice. Oh my goodness, this is so interesting. This is exactly what I've been talking about today, is those who, it's part of what I've been talking about today, are people who are on the channel, like, entertaining themselves with what I say. Surely there's someone else who is more entertaining than me. I mean, if you're not going to live this covenant, you're not going to show up to the assemblies, you're not going to do the things that God has commanded, why are you listening to me? It's kind of weird. I'm not that entertaining. And look what they're doing with Ezekiel. Come and hear the message that has come from the Lord. My people come to you as they usually do and sit before you to hear your words, but they do not put them into practice. Their mouths speak of love, but their hearts are greedy for unjust gain. Indeed, to them, you are nothing more than one who sings love songs with a beautiful voice and plays an instrument well, for they hear your words, but do not put them into practice. When all this comes true, and it surely will, then you will know that a prophet has been among them. Thank God for his faithfulness, because he will testify. He is the one who fulfills the words of his prophets. He will bring everything that his witnesses have said, he will bring it to fulfillment. Chapter 34, the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to you, shepherds of Israel, who only take care of yourselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourself with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock. You have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured. You've not brought back the strays, or searched for the lost. You have ruled them harshly and brutally, so they are scattered because there was no shepherd. And when they were scattered, they became food for all the wild animals. My sheep wandered all the mountains, and on every high hill. They were scattered over the whole earth, and no one searched or looked for them. I was talking about this today, too. I'm tripping out right now, because God was really pushing on me to read, go back to Ezekiel. These are the very things I was talking about today. And what I was talking about specifically is that God is giving certain people eyes to see and ears to hear. Those who have been grieving and lamenting the detestable things that are being done in Jerusalem, in that city that is supposed to be his, and they're grieved. They're really grieved, and he's bringing them out of the nations and bringing them together, and he's telling you, these are your teachers. This is the way. Walk in it. And his sheep will be scattered no more. They will be collected together as a hen gathers her chicks. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because my flock lacks a shepherd, and so has been plundered and has become food for all the wild animals, and because now here, listen to what he's saying, has become food for all the wild animals. It's like a vulture just coming to peck at the corpse. You know, that's how the worthless shepherds treat the most oppressed of the flock, like vultures who come to pick off the last bit of flesh. My sheep wandered over all the mountains and on every hill. They were scattered over the whole earth, and no one searched or looked for them. Therefore, you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. As surely as I live, declares the sovereign Lord, because my flock lacks a shepherd, and so has been plundered and has become food for all the wild animals, and because my shepherds did not search for my flock, but cared for themselves rather than my flock, therefore you shepherds, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against the shepherds and will hold them accountable for my flock. I will remove from them tending the flock so that the shepherds can no longer feed themselves. I will rescue my flock from their mouths, and it will no longer be food for them. For this is what the sovereign Lord says. I myself will search for my sheep and look after them. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they were scattered on a day of clouds and darkness. I will bring them out from the nations and gather them from the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. So, what does that mean, that he'll bring them into their own land? Does that mean everybody's going to fly to Jerusalem and we're all just going to gather there? No, you're Jerusalem. It means that you don't want to attend the assemblies. You don't want to attend New Moon. He's gathering his people together and bringing them together. So those who worship in the truth and in spirit, and they obey the commands of the Lord, when they're assembling, that's God gathering them together. You're exempting yourself, because that is God gathering his people together. And surely they will be gathered in the first resurrection. But right now, they're in all different places in this world. So last Tuesday, we had 11 people in our Bible study, and out of 643 on the channel, that's 1.7%. How many do you think? How many do you think will be there? How many do you think will actually be saved? If that's the sorry percentage on this channel, how many do you think are showing up for what God's servants are doing? I mean, I had more people showing up when I was getting paid to speak on the authority of the world. Now I do for free so that you can have a shepherd and you can't be bothered to show up. So he will bring them into their own land. He will bring them together. He will bring them together as Jerusalem. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the ravines, and in all the settlements in the land. I will tend them in a good pasture, and the mountain heights of Israel will be their grazing land. There they will lie down in good grazing land, and there they will feed in a rich pasture on the mountains of Israel. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the sovereign Lord. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak. But the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd the flock with justice. As for you, my flock, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I will judge between one sheep and another, and between rams and goats. Is it not enough for you to feed on the good pasture? Must you also trample the rest of your pasture with your feet? Is it not enough for you to drink clear water? Must you also muddy the rest with your feet? Must my flock feed on what you have trampled and drink what you have muddied with your feet? What's he saying? Keep it clean. Stop dirtying his doctrine. Stop postulating. Stop distorting the word of God. Keep it pure and keep it true. Don't add to the scroll and don't remove from the scroll. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says to them. See, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep, because you shove with flank and shoulder, butting all the weak sheep with your horns until you have driven them away. I will save my flock, and they will no longer be plundered. I will judge between one sheep and another. I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, okay, talking about Christ, and he will tend them. He will tend them and be their shepherd. I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken. I believe also what he's talking about when he says here are the Pharisees who lord the law over them. They judge by external standards, not internal standards, and they lord teaching over them. Now, don't confuse that with what's going on in counterfeit Christianity today, where you're being, softly seduced all the way to hell. God's servants are going to speak truth, and they're going to speak it boldly, and it's going to convict you. But you're going to have a way to obey it. It's not going to be such harsh burdens that you're not able to obey it, or that it's unreasonable, like a rule for this and a rule for that, and, the things that the Pharisees were doing. Even in, like a good example of this would be when they called the blind man before the Sanhedrin. And he had been healed by Jesus, and they're like haranguing him and asking him, well, what happened, and who did he do this, and by what means did he do this, and blah blah blah, and they're questioning him, and they want to kind of trap him into condemning Jesus, into accusing him or something like that, saying something against him. And the blind, or the once blind man who can now see, says to them, perhaps you'd like to be his disciple. I already told you what happened. And they get angry and they throw him out of the Sanhedrin. But before they throw him out of the Sanhedrin, they say to him, or the synagogue, and before they throw him out, they say to him, you were born in sin. I mean, come on. All of us were born into sin. But they're saying that to him because he was born blind. And actually, Jesus already clarified with his apostles that neither this man nor his parents sinned, that he was born blind, but that was done in order that the works of God, that the glory of God might be displayed in him. So they weren't even correct, but you see how they lord things over them? Like here, they're wickedly trying to condemn Jesus, and yet they're angry with this man because, he won't trip up and say something against Jesus, and so then they condemn him, right? Because he won't go along with their wickedness. The Antichrist does that as well. We're told in the word that the Antichrist, and surely that's the same spirit operating in that situation, the Antichrist. But he will flatter those who forsake the Holy Covenant. He flatters those who defile themselves, who speak against God, who, go along with his agenda. But he doesn't ultimately have any loyalty to you. He's always going to bite you once he's done using you. Okay, so again, verse 20, therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says to them. See, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep. Before you shove with flank and shoulder, butting all the weak sheep with your horns until you have driven them away, I will save my flock, and they will no longer be plundered. I will judge between one sheep and another. I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them. He will tend them, and he will be their shepherd. I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince among them. I, the Lord, have spoken. Okay, notice that he's saying prince here. Sometimes, Jesus is referred to as king of the Jews. And the reason I'm pointing out that he's being referred to as prince here is because he's going to be referred to as prince when Ezekiel's shown the third temple. So you want to remember that sometimes he's referred to as prince. Sometimes he's referred to as David. You don't want to get confused about stuff like that. Sometimes he's referred to as Joshua. Sometimes he's referred to as Zerubbabel. You'll see that in Zechariah. Okay, so you might want to just make notes in your key. I will make a covenant of peace with them and rid the land of savage beasts so that they may live in the wilderness and sleep in the forests in safety. I will make them and the places surrounding my hill a blessing. What's his hill? His hill are his people, Mount Zion. I will send down showers in season. There will be showers of blessing. The trees will yield their fruit, and the ground will yield its crops. The people will be secure in their land. They will know that I am the Lord when I break the bars of their yoke and rescue them from the hands of those who enslaved them. They will no longer be plundered by the nations, nor will wild animals devour them. They will live in safety, and no one will make them afraid. I will provide for them a land renowned for its crops, and they will no longer be victims of famine in the land or bear the scorn of the nations. Then they will know that I, the Lord their God, am with them, and that they, the Israelites, are my people, declares the sovereign Lord. You are my sheep, the sheep of my pasture, and I am your God, declares the sovereign Lord. Okay, I'm going to stop right there for this portion. That was chapters 33 and 34, just so that I make sure that I don't pack too much in a week. And I look forward to seeing you in Bible study.